Now, the science behind earthquakes is truly fascinating. As much as we know about the world, we still cannot predict when they'll happen or where they'll happen. Here to talk about the progress, though, is Clark Dunson. And Clark, you were recently honored at the White House last month for your work when it comes to this sort of thing. And here's a picture from that event. How much do we really know about earthquakes, and why is there still a mystery, would you say?
Well, the mystery is that there is a lot of them, and when and where they happen is based on things that are happening underground that we can't directly access. And Mike, I'd like to say thank you, Ni Hao and Shishe, for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Well, Clark, you make a really interesting point because I lived in the Midwest, and you would get tornado watches, you get tornado warnings. I also lived in Florida, where you get hurricane watches and warnings, and of course you can predict tropical cyclones as well. And you're kind of getting at the heart of it, in the sense that you can look up in the sky and see things developing. In this case, it's underground. So you have these sensors, and they're placed in a number of different locations. What are you looking for from those sensors to tell you whether or not you can detect an earthquake?
Well, it's an important point to realize that earthquake forecasting as a science has been around for over 100 years. And when we talk about forecasting an earthquake, we need to think about the time period of the forecast. There's been a lot of successful work done forecasting earthquakes 20, 30 years in the future. That's a long-term earthquake prediction, and it helps with many things: emergency planning, insurance, things like that. There's also short-term earthquake forecasting, which is, you've probably heard about 20-second warning. Mexico City, they get a 1-minute warning. The short-term forecast and the long-term forecast are fairly well developed. The difficult one is the mid-term forecast, which would be from, say, 1 hour to a month. This is where we haven't made much progress scientifically.
And Clark, what are the obstacles? Is it that there just aren't enough sensors out there, or something else?
It's been a very difficult study. There have been a lot of failed experiments that were done in the 60s and 70s. The advent of electronic instruments and the ability to record things with precise timing and location made a big difference. And that really started picking up in the 60s and 70s and enabled scientists, seismologists primarily, to reject a bunch of hypotheses that weren't so easy to see through until we had good instrumentation. And now we've had a development in the midterm earthquake forecasting realm. Probably people recall the 1989 earthquake in the Bay Area during a baseball game, World Series baseball game between the Giants and the Oakland A's. That earthquake was being studied actually later because there were magnetic signals that occurred before the earthquake. And this has reignited a wave of study into midterm forecasting, which is now, because of the internet and cheap access to spacecraft and satellites, has brought about a new wave of midterm forecasting that is picking up speed. There's a lot of healthy scientific debate right now, and it's an exciting, vibrant time in the prediction community.
All right. Well, Clark Dunson, it's a fascinating subject, no doubt about it, and thank you so much for enlightening us from Mountain View, California, where they certainly see their fair share of earthquakes out there, where there's a lot of seismic activity.